Hello and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. Tonight is October 11th. It is Thursday, 2018. And tonight we're going to be taking a look at the big moves in gold and silver. Title of the episode is Gold Soars, Leads Silver Higher as Stocks Crumble. Before we get into the gold and silver, let's just take a quick look at what happened during the day. At the White House, Donald Trump entertained Kanye West, James Brown, and Kid Rock, which was supposedly a very raucous meeting with Kanye dropping F-bombs and giving Donald Trump a big hug. More importantly, though, I don't know if it's more important, but perhaps of more significance, is the Senate approved 18 new judicial seats, 3 in the circuit and 15 in the district. Now, what does that mean? Well, the way the federal court is set up, everyone knows about the Supreme Court. Underneath the Supreme Court are the circuit court judges. They are the courts of appeals where you may have your cases that are federal cases that have come up from the district court. So there's the district court, the circuit court, and then the Supreme Court. Trump has now named 29 of those circuit court judges, nearly 1 in 6 of all judges. And they just added, with the 18 appointees today, 15 of which were district court judges, he's now named 53 of those judges. So Trump is putting a lot of his stamp on the judiciary, not just with the 2 Supreme Court justices, but also at the circuit and the appellate court. Now, what's interesting is how he pulled that off. McConnell actually did this. He basically told the Democrats that we will stay in session to go through these appointees through November. And that would mean that the Democrats would not be able, or anyone, or the Republicans would be able to go back to their districts and campaign because they'd be stuck inside of Washington debating and going through these appointees. And they'd probably lose anyway because of the way the Senate is set up right now, 51-49. So essentially today they got through 18 more federal judges, as I mentioned, 3 on the circuit court and 15 on the district. Now let's take a look now at our gold and silver prices and our crypto prices and where we think what this might mean as to where gold and silver prices might be heading. Today was a big day again for gold, bigger than yesterday. Now remember we said yesterday, sometimes there's a lag on these things, that if you recall last night we were looking at that gold chart and seeing while the stocks had declined a lot, like 800 points yesterday, big day at the Dow Jones. It wasn't until the end of the day that gold went up, and it went up $4 or $5. It went up, but it didn't really make much of a thing. And I said there might be some follow-through today if the stock market fell. Well, indeed, there was significant follow-through. The stock market had fallen on the Dow Jones side almost 700 points at one point, closed at about 545 points down. So if you're keeping track, you're down about 1,300, 1,400 points in just 2 days. Well, gold also didn't follow through until the market began to fall. And you can see in the chart, it really started to move as the day went on and finally put in the type of day you would expect when the market starts to fall. Up nearly 2.5%, up close to $30, opened at $11.93, got as high as $12.25, closed at $12.22, and right now is at about $12.20. Now silver, not surprisingly, yesterday actually was down a piece, was hardly up at all. But today, silver also began to catch a bid, although it did not rise as much as gold. Now this is a good thing if you want the price of silver to go higher. Why? Silver is not supposed to, or not supposed to, it doesn't generally lead the gold price higher. What I've been saying is that the gold price leads the silver price higher. And that in order for silver, or not in order for silver, but historically, silver does not get the type of spikes that you like to see until gold has established itself in a significant upward trend. And I don't mean 2 days, 3 days, or a month or two. It has to be solidly rising for months. And we saw that in 1979 and 80 when silver boosted to $50. Gold had been rising from $200 to $800. We saw it in 2011 as gold rose from $800 to $1,800 and silver spurted up to $50. We saw it a bit when we had a 3 or 4 month rise in 2016 where gold had a few $100 rise, and then silver got itself off the canvas at around $13.82 from 2015 and rose all the way up to about $20. But again, silver is that spike and dive metal, and because gold didn't sustain its high prices or higher prices, then silver starts to lose, and silver loses more than gold on the downside. And silver actually doesn't gain more than gold on the upside. It only does so when it gets extreme. But when it gets extreme, that's when silver makes those once-in-a-lifetime spikes and then the inevitable dive. I always call silver the spike and dive metal. Now, a lot of people have been, it just bothers me when they talk about silver like it's the second coming. Silver has never had a gold-silver ratio at 16 consistently over the last 100 years. It's hit that for like 3 weeks in the last 110, 15 years. It's generally been averaging well over 50, especially since the end of Bretton Woods. Let's just take a look at what happened today with the gold-silver ratio. You can see went as high as 84 to 1 at some point earlier today and is now at about 84 to 1, 83.91. I don't have the 5-year chart in front of me, but over the last 5 years, gold-silver ratio has done nothing really except go straight higher. And over the last 5 years, you've heard every silver pumper tell you it's going lower, it's got to go lower, it's unsustainable. And it went from 60 to 1 to 70 to 1 to 80 to 1. And I think it's just misguided, or it's just pumping that they keep telling you that this gold-silver ratio has to go lower. Silver is rarer than gold. All these stories about how useful silver is, silver shield, whatever you want to say. Silver has never been a solid performer over hundreds of years. I could care less that a Roman soldier got a denarius. It doesn't mean anything in today's world. Gold is the metal that rich people, banks go to in a time of crisis. It's not silver. Silver gets attention when gold has got too much attention and it picks up some overflow. But anyway, that's where you are with the gold-silver ratio. It's at 83 to 1. Now, today the U.S. Mint did not report any sales, and I suspect they sold a lot of silver today and some gold, but they just didn't get around to reporting it. Through yesterday, they had reported 960,000 American Silver Eagles. They probably sold a few 100,000 more to authorized purchasers if they've got them available. We'll probably see those numbers tomorrow, and I'll give you those numbers if they do indeed report on the numbers tomorrow. Another interesting thing that happened today, which is not good news for the gold market, is the CME Group raised margins on gold contracts by about 9%. And generally what they like to do is this is manipulation in a way, is when they see that there's what they think is speculative froth, like a day like today, where gold went up almost 2.5%. They try to cap that, and they figure they don't want people borrowing a lot of money to go long because that could drive the price higher, and they can't have that. So they put a increase in margins tonight. And the most extreme example where they ever did that was they raised margins when they knew that the Hunts brothers were on margin and they wouldn't be able to meet their margin call if the margins were higher, requirements that they had to put up. And then when they then said, and by the way, you can only sell silver now, that made the price go down and made their holdings worth even less. They had to put up more collateral. They didn't have it, and they went bust. So you're not dealing with a free market where people are going to rush to gold or rush to silver and the price is going to go soaring. They have ways of capping it. And we saw, even when the price went to $50 in 2011, how quickly they were able to cap it. At one time, went down from 50 to 43 in a few minutes. And then it's been downhill ever since. So that's it on gold and silver. Now, let's take a look at the cryptos. Yesterday was very interesting. When we were talking, I was mentioning how there wasn't much of an impact yesterday on cryptocurrencies. And then when I got off of the podcast, I checked the price. It all went down significantly. And that's the case again today. That's interesting. And you're seeing these prices. Bitcoin is the one that's holding up the best. It's down 5% or 4.90% in the last 24 hours at 61.67. But Bitcoin Cash is down 13%, down to 428. Ethereum down to 190 at 13% decrease. Litecoin down to 50.50, down 11%. And Ethereum Classic down to 9.15, down 15%. Now, these are all subject to change. They move up and move down, and I wouldn't be surprised when we get off of this live stream that they're up or down another 5 or 10% one way or the other. But what I find interesting is, we were mentioning last night how they really aren't in any way connected to anything, and they just go up and they go down when they feel like it. But what's interesting is the last 2 days, right around this time, they both fell precipitously. And they fell after the U.S. markets closed. Now, this is just my theory, and take it for what it's worth. My theory is that Wall Street is eyeing these assets and wants to get in on them. They're putting the plans in place, ETFs, trading platforms, registered SEC, everything. And I think they were the prices of cryptocurrencies had been flat for about 6-7 weeks. And I thought that was probably because they want them to be at a certain level before they then start moving some of their clients into the crypto assets from Wall Street. But when Wall Street fell, my guess is they had to drop the cryptocurrencies as well. So when they transfer those assets, they're at the same level. I don't know. That's assuming that they're able to manipulate markets to these at this type of level. And if they can, well, then what I'm saying makes sense. If they can't do it, then I'm just noticing a correlation that has nothing to do with manipulation. All right. Now, let's see. Was there anything else during the day? Oh, I have some more charts I want to show you because JP Morgan, we had been following them in September and how they had sold off a lot of their silver, like 6 million ounces in September, as the price was falling. And I said, well, that doesn't make any sense. I thought they bought all this silver so they can sell it when it went up. First of all, I think I think that the JP Morgan has 800 million ounces of silver is complete nonsense. There's no backing for it, and the idea that you can't prove it, you can't prove that they don't have it, doesn't cut the mustard with me. You can't prove that they do have it. You can only speculate. And if you speculate and you tell everyone to speculate and they all start saying it's there, JP Morgan does not have 800 million ounces of silver. And we also know that they probably don't even own the 140 some odd million ounces that are in the COMEX vault. But interestingly enough, we saw how they sold off 6 million ounces, or at least the JP Morgan vault, who knows whose silver it was, left the vault as the price was falling. Well, now, the last couple of days, as the price has risen, they've added it back. So this is at the idea that JP Morgan has any silver is a theory. It's pure speculation. It's actually a shame that so many people believe it as if it's a fact when there is no plausible evidence that they have any silver whatsoever. Physical silver. JP Morgan is buying silver, so I'm buying silver too. Okay. But you can see here, I'm showing you they have 142 million ounces, up from 139.8 or 7, and that's all in the last couple of days. So as the price has risen, more silver has gone into the JP Morgan vault. However, you know, if you look now, though, we've been tracking Brinks since they were at 37, 38 million ounces. The Brinks vault is really filling up. It's now at 45 million ounces. If you look back to just early 2016, they were at 20 million. So they've actually increased their silver vault at a much higher rate than JP Morgan silver vault. These are just vaults. For the most part, the silver in there is held on behalf of clients. It's in the good delivery bars. All this nonsense about JP Morgan buying silver, going long. Complete fantasy. Okay. I think that is it. And let's see what we got in the comments. Tom Manley is here again. Good evening, everyone. Getting those judges lined up for us ought to be epic. Pablo Pena, if gold to silver ratio does go to 16-1, be exchanging my silver to gold. Yeah, don't count on that, though. Have you ever seen, let me see if I can find you the charts. I mean, you're here now. I might as well show you the long-term chart. The gold and silver ratio has never been, it's people who tout that, first of all, here, while I'm looking for it, I'm going to give you the 5-year chart on the gold-silver ratio while I find something longer. It's just, which one is this? That's just a 1 day. I got to find you these charts. I don't want to just refer you to other podcasts we've done, because maybe you guys are listening for the first time. So I want to show you well, here's a 10-year chart. Now this one goes back. This one ends on 2017. Well, that's a 10-year chart, and you can see even at the peak it was at 32 for a brief moment, and for the rest of the time it's been well over 50 on that 10-year chart that you're looking at there. Okay, but that's not what I wanted to show you, and that's an extreme increase in the gold-silver ratio. All right, here's your long term from 1915 to 1917. And the reason I like to go through this chart, yeah, Bitcoin dominance went to 55, 56%. That's right. Okay, Drunk Ox, silver is mine 9-1, but it's truly valued at 9-1. Okay, first of all, a lot of people throw out these numbers, 9-1. It's irrelevant. I'll tell you why. Relative rarity is not determinative of price. My example is I've made 3 paintings. Picasso made thousands. Should I argue that my painting should be worth multiples of Picasso because he made more than me? No. Wrong goes star. People want and desire Picasso paintings at a far greater rate than they do mine. If you don't like that example, go right over to platinum. Platinum is mined at 1/10 to 1/15 of the amount of gold that is pulled out of the ground. Is platinum 10 to 15 times more expensive than gold? No way, Jose. Why? Because platinum isn't as desired. It isn't as much in demand. So the idea that platinum is 15 times rarer than gold doesn't make it 15 times more valuable. So silver, just because it may exist only 9 times more plentiful than gold, doesn't mean that the ratio should be 9-1. Silver, as we've seen from other guests in other countries, in many instances is a throwaway metal. It's a throwaway metal because it's not desired as much. I'm not saying that I don't like silver. Silver's no good. Silver just isn't gold. And it never will be. And that's why central banks haven't lined up their, oh, but Russia's, okay. Central banks do not list silver as a reserve asset. People stack silver. The only people that really stack silver are Americans who watch YouTube channels that teach them how to stack silver. The rest of the world doesn't stack silver bars. It doesn't buy coins with skulls on them, whatever, rounds or silver rounds. Silver is not gold. It doesn't matter how rare the ratio is. So if you look at this chart here, you can see that silver had rarely been anywhere near 16-1. The only time it was near 16-1 was in 1981. You can see that, and it was there for about 3 seconds. You can see in July or around 1966 it was close, but you know why it was there? Because the price of gold had been set at $35 an ounce by the Gold Act of 1934, and by 1966 it was still $35 an ounce. So there had been 30 years of inflation, and the price of gold was still $35 an ounce, and even then, and silver was allowed to go higher, silver still didn't manage to get a 16-1 ratio. Look at when it was 100-1 in the 40s, and look at it in in like the, what is it, 1990 or something, it was 100 to 1. This chart only goes to 2016 or so. We're getting close again. But again, ever since gold, remember, stopped being $35 an ounce and was allowed to float. And remember, Americans weren't allowed to even own gold until December 1974. Ever since Americans have been allowed to hold gold, if you look at the chart, the average gold-silver ratio has been 55 to 60. With those two periods in 1980 and in 2011, when it went to 16 to 1 for a second, and when it went to 32 to 1 for a second. The gold-silver ratio is not destined to go to 9 to 1, 16 to 1, 3 to 1, whatever it is. The only way the gold-silver ratio will ever go there is if something comes out of that we're not aware of, where there's all of a sudden a massive surge in demand for silver for some mandated reason or some where there's just absolutely no substitute. But there isn't. Yoga pants, they're finding new uses for silver all the time. Most of that stuff is nano silver or it's uses of silver in small amounts. Even the silver used in solar panels, they're using less and less of it per panel. They're using less of it in electronics. And people don't look at the numbers. They talk in generalities, and then they tell you silver set to skyrocket, silver shortage, silver fortune, silver bullet, silver, all this nonsense that somehow silver is the most. And you don't have to take it from me. Just look at the price for the last 10 years. If it was that valuable and it was that much of a hidden secret of money, it wouldn't be the same price for 10 years. And you could say manipulation. 10 years, though? I mean, yes, there's manipulation. There's manipulation in gold. There's manipulation in silver. But even so, if it was that rare, someone would be scooping it up and it would have an impact on the price. And there is no J.P. Morgan buying 900 million ounces. These are all stories, I think. They're just designed. I don't know if they actually believe them. They probably do. I guess once you become, that's your job, is to sell silver or to sell silver information, then you believe that, silver is the most valuable thing when the rest of the world doesn't agree with you. All right, but you can see there's a long-term chart. There's no argument that there should be there is no argument. It's just you want to believe it. If you want to believe it, believe it. And you can believe it, but which one is this? This is September 4th. This is just a typical day. Look at that. 1 month ratio in September. There's not a good looking chart there. Went from like 78 to 1 to 84 to 1. That was just August, September. All right. What else do we got here? What happened that day? Drunk octopus in 1400, before the Spanish discovered massive silver mines in Bolivia, the ratio was extremely close. Yes. In fact, there was a period of time in the 1850s where the ratio was very low too. And there's a reason for that. During the gold rush of 1849, a lot of that gold got mined and was sent back east, flooding the market with gold. And that made silver more valuable for a very short period of time. As I say, that's the only way it's going to go down. If there's some dramatic increase in silver demand or cut off in supply or something like that. But what happened then was the silver came back. And remember, at the time in the United States, they had set gold and silver as official money and coinage. So you needed those coins. And when you hear about a 16 to 1 ratio or 9 to 1 ratios, those are generally set, not by the market, but they're by metallic standards. So they have to set it at a certain price. So it does happen. It has happened, but it hasn't happened in 120 years where you've had anything near a ratio that is as close as 16 to 1, other than those brief moments. And ever since the end of the gold standard, and the best thing about the end of the gold standard is it happened in 1971, is you already had an end of a silver coinage standard, which ended in the United States in 1964, also in Europe and in Australia and India and China and Canada. They also stopped making silver coins around the same time. So by 1971, no nation was on a gold standard other than maybe Switzerland, but the world's global standard was not gold based, and no countries needed silver to make coins. So absent that monetary demand, we've seen gold and silver, the ratio, increase dramatically. Now, why is that? My contention is that central banks still view gold as a monetary asset, but they don't view silver as a monetary asset. Silver had been only included as a monetary asset in the United States because of the silver Democrats. They always wanted to have silver. They viewed it as an inflationary asset. And also, Kennedy was trying to get rid of silver. He said the only reason we have silver is to make coins, but other than that, it serves no useful monetary purpose. And that was a widely held belief. And finally, when they stopped making coins out of it, it lost all of its monetary qualities to the rest of the world. So you didn't need it as a reserve asset, and you don't use it for coins, so it's not a monetary asset. Gold wasn't used for coins since the early 20th century, or the mid-20th century, 1933, 1934, but remained and still is a monetary asset. So there is and there's also cultural cultural reasons to own gold in China and India, where you have very large consumers of gold. Silver, not so much. They're not against silver, but it doesn't have the same allure. It's not the same generational wealth that gold is. So gold currently is a monetary asset. It is a cultural artifact, or a continuing, a historic cultural trend that they buy gold during these festivals. Yeah, they buy a little silver, but it's not the same. It's only in the United States where you have silver stackers. The rest of the world does not revere silver at all. I'm not downplaying silver. I'm explaining why you've had a steady increase in the gold-silver ratio over the last 20, 30 years, where it's been averaging almost 60 to 1 now. And the idea that it's going to go, absent some black swan event, it's not going to go any lower. I mean, it'll go lower. It could go lower, but it's not going to 16 to 1 or 1 to 1 or 9 to 1. The only reason it would go that way, more likely, would be you'd have to have a stratospheric rise in gold or total collapse in both metals. But in this world where gold is going up a bit, going down a bit, silver goes up a bit, goes down a bit, no way does silver just all of a sudden skyrocket and gold doesn't. Unless there's, again, some newfound discovery where you absolutely positively must have silver. All right, what other questions we got for tonight? Nation store gold, not much silver. That's right. What about gold uses? Silver has more uses. That's not true, Pablo. Gold is a very versatile metal. In fact, it doesn't tarnish, and silver does. It would be used more than it is right now. It's a very good conductor of electricity. It reflects very well. There's a lot of uses for gold, and there's clearly it's more desired as jewelry than silver is. The reason silver is used more is because it's cheap. Hey, there's more uses for copper than there is for silver. Why? It's not because copper is a better metal. It's because it's even cheaper. They make copper pipes. Now, they would make silver pipes. Silver pipes would be great. Why? Because if you had silver pipes, then you wouldn't have a bacteria issue, because the silver is antimicrobial. But it's not that cheap, so they use copper. Copper is good for a lot of electronics. It conducts electricity. Copper is used as money. So the idea that it's not that gold doesn't have uses, it doesn't have economic uses. And just as silver is not used where copper could be used, because copper's cheaper. Gold is money, everything else is credit. First of all, that's not the statement. You know that, Tom. The statement is not gold is money, everything else is credit. He said gold is what did he say? First of all, it's 1915, so it's a different world back then. He said gold is money and nothing else. I like the platinum analogy because they make a high selling record awards out of it. That's right. Well, actually, platinum is considered the highest standard. When you have your credit card, you have your silver card, your gold card, and your platinum card. What about gold? We said that one. Okay. Nation store gold, not so much silver. Pound sterling. Yep. Sterling was a monetary metal, and it was clearly in demand when all countries were using the trade dollar in late 1800s was a silver. The pieces of 8, the pilar, the Spanish silver. What was it called? It was called pieces of 8, but it was called something the thaler, I think. Anyway, you have throughout history clearly using money, currency, trade dollars, Morgan dollars, silver, all types of coinage in silver was used far more than the gold coins were. And just the pound sterling was a unit of account. As I said, gold and silver were money. No two ways about it. When people insist that silver is money today, it's wrong. It serves no useful currency. Could be, but it isn't. It has all the properties of money, but it is not used as a unit of account. Could be, but isn't. It's the same with gold. Gold isn't money anymore, but it is a monetary asset, which means it could be used. It isn't. And in fact, actually, it probably is used and we don't know about it. I would bet that Iran issues gold trade notes and ships gold here and there in exchange for goods and services. We just don't know about it. But I doubt anyone does that with silver. Weed is more expensive than silver. That doesn't make sense, but what does these days? You know what else is more expensive than silver is vanilla. Back when I was in college, gold was $300 an ounce, the same price as high-quality weed. Astounding, says Dr. Modesta. Silver was historically used as money, says Bob, just as much of gold and not more. That's true. But remember, what happened in history doesn't necessarily mean, as people used to ride horses more than they rode donkeys. What does that mean? That horses are better than donkeys today? Doesn't mean that. Just means that, yes, silver has a long history as a unit of account going back to Lydia in Turkey, BC times. Biblically, you have Judas Iscariot selling Jesus out for silver. Silver was valuable. And I'm not denying, I know the history of silver. I'm saying it doesn't. The fact that the silver denarius was a worldwide currency, the pieces of 8 was a worldwide currency, the trade dollar was used the silver U.S. trade dollar was used in Asian trade. Yeah, you can't deny the history of silver. That doesn't mean that it exists today as money. It's called the pound sterling, for God's sake. No, it's not called the pound sterling. No longer. You see, the UK money is not based on a pound sterling anymore. They just call it that. Just like they call something the gold standard of whatever. It doesn't mean there's gold behind it. That's just an historic use of the word. There is no silver in British money. There's not even gold at the Bank of England. They only have like 300 tons of gold. Kazakhstan has more gold than the Bank of England has. Everyday coinage, silver is not used. Now, that doesn't mean that silver isn't valuable. Just like horses aren't transportation anymore, that doesn't mean horses aren't valuable. When people, 5,000 years, people rode horses. Horses are transportation, will always be transportation. Yes, but not the preferred transportation. Gold is no longer money. Gold is a valuable commodity. Silver, a valuable industrial commodity with a monetary history. There is some value in it, but I would say the reason the gold-silver ratio is higher is that gold still has a monetary component, whereas silver, it's all historic. There's no current silver in use anywhere in the world, either as small change, pocket change, or as collateral. It's just not used the way gold is. Even in India, when they save for dowries, they save for gold. The World Bank in China is silver house. I don't know what that means. The word for money in French. Look, I know all this. The word for money in French is silver. Argent. I know. I understand all that. It doesn't mean it's worth anything today. That's a historic artifact. The word for money there is argent, which means silver. Plata in Espanol. Exactly. I know this too. See, when people they act like I don't know this and that they're teaching me something, I know this, and this is. You have to get to a point where you know something, and then you don't make it part of your dogma. It's like, silver is money. The word for silver in French is argent. I know that, and therefore I'm buying silver. You have to say to yourself, why is the gold-silver ratio no longer 16 to 1? Why was it ever 16 to 1? Why don't they use silver as money anymore? If you don't know those things, repeating history doesn't mean anything. It just means you learned something. But are you applying it to why? Why has the price of silver not gone up 10 years? You got silver pumpers out there telling you, you got to buy silver, hand over fist. Silver is money. More uses for it every day. Silver shortage. COMEX default. Gold back yuan. I hear all these stories, and they're all telling you everything's set to skyrocket. And when it doesn't, you have to go deeper and ask yourself why. You can't just say gold has been money for 5,000 years, period. Gold is money and everything else is credit. It's almost like robotic, knee-jerk, and it doesn't actually help you understand why what you're holding isn't going up, hasn't gone up for years. There's reasons for it. The reasons aren't. What you're saying is, okay, so gold, the word for money in French is silver. And that means that the price of silver should be higher? That doesn't mean that. That's just a fact. Facts, you have to attach analysis to facts. And you have to wonder when they were facts, why they were facts, and whether those facts have any relevance or they're just historic. People used to ride horses. People rode horses for 5,000 years. Am I supposed to determine from that horses are now valuable as transportation because people used to ride horses for 5,000 years? No, I have to know, what are horses used for today? Mostly riding around in circles so people can bet on them. Or people riding around their backyard. You could ride a horse from New York to Boston, but most likely you're not going to do that. And again, it doesn't mean horses are no good anymore, that horses can't serve as transportation. Horses are not transportation anymore. The word for transportation is horse in ancient, in ancient Aztec. So what? That doesn't mean anything. Well, it means something. That means that they used to use the word horse equals transportation. Now, people fall in love with an asset, and they fall in love with its history, and they assume that it's still relevant exactly as it was. All right, what else? Jaunt. If you bought gold and money, you're already in profit. Well, that's true. There you go. Remember Rod Argent from the Zombies? He had a hit with Hold Your Head Up, but he also had a hit with Time of the Season with the Zombies. Very good artist. Who knew it was easy to make money in gold? Yeah, you just know it's hard money, says Baba. What does that mean, it's hard money? It's hard money. Hard money to whom? The only reason people hold gold and silver, I don't care what anyone says, is to cash in fiat profits. That's it. Or if they're going to give it to their kids because they don't make any money for 30 years on it, their kids are going to turn it in for fiat profits. They're not going to use it for anything other than melting it down into jewelry or selling it for fiat. That's like saying I'm going to buy a horse because one day I'm going to go from New York to Boston on it. No, you're not. You could. If you actually believe that horses are transportation and that's what you bought a horse for, you probably overpaid for your horse. Now, here's another one, the price of mining of silver. That's another one people like to throw out. It's a lot more complicated than, oh, so when the price of silver gets more expensive to mine than the price of silver, then the price of silver will rise because there will be a silver shortage. That's nonsense too. There's a lot of silver above ground to begin with. Second of all, the price of silver to mine for a primary silver miner may be $12, $13 or whatever, but that's only 25% of all the silver mined. A lot of silver is mined as a byproduct where, in a sense, they count it as free. They count that whatever other mining metal that they're doing, they figure out the price for that, and then whatever they get for the silver, they don't even count. Or what a lot of companies now do, a lot of silver mines, is they do a silver equivalent an ounce, which means a lot of these silver mines are actually gold mines primarily, or 50, 60, 70, 80%. They call themselves silver mines, but they're actually doing silver equivalent ounces. So even there, that's not something that you could say, well, once the price of silver goes so low, there's going to be a shortage, and therefore the price is going to go high. Possibly, but it's not $13, $14. The price would have to drop to $4 or $3 or $2 for that to be a problem. The cost for a primary miner probably $7 an ounce. I ordered 6 ounces today. I'm for gold. Don't get me wrong. I just don't like to hear this dogma that comes out of people's mouths. They're repeating what the silver pumpers and gold pumpers say, when everything they're saying as if it's not just a fact, but therefore the price should be higher. Well, if the price isn't higher despite of those facts, then there's a reason it's not higher. Those facts are not pushing the price higher. So you can repeat them all you want. You can say gold back yuan, silver shortage, gold is money, period. Silver is money. Silver is a hard asset. They're finding more uses for silver every day. Whatever you want to say, that has had no impact on the price. Mexico, Pablo. Yep, gold was up over 300% in the 2000s. Yep. That it were. And the reason for that was it had been suppressed for 30, 40 years at $35. If you think about it, they had a congressional act, the Gold Act of 1934, setting the price by Congress at $35 an ounce. Unbelievable. They also thought, historically, a little trivia here, that when the U.S. went off the gold standard, check this out, they thought that the price of gold would fall from $35 an hour. Why? Because it had been demonetized, and the only reason people would want gold would be for trinkets and jewelry. And therefore, with the monetary value removed from gold, they expected the price of gold to fall. It didn't. Why? Because people still viewed globally gold as a monetary asset, even though it wasn't part of the gold standard anymore. So central banks still hold gold. Silver, when they took it out of the coins, hardly anything happened. They just changed they didn't even change the design. They just took the silver out of the coins, created some inflation, but that inflation wasn't because they took the silver out of the coins. It was because they were spending money like drunken sailors on the space race and spending it on the Vietnam War and spending it on the Great Society and introducing Medicare and Medicaid. But silver has not had that we have to have silver in the monetary system. Silver, even when it was in the monetary system, was there as an accommodation to the Democrats. Most of the people in the United States, the Republicans, the moneyed people, did not want to have silver. They did not want to buy metallic standard. They wanted the money to be backed by gold. In the late 1800s, it was a classical gold standard, nothing to do with silver. Silver has been pocket change in its history. It hasn't been the same, hasn't had the same allure as gold. And when they took it out of pocket change, it lost its monetary status, even as pocket change. We live in a temporary age of fiat. Gold and silver are still considered hard money. By whom? By you. The world does not consider gold and silver hard money. Yeah, you listen to YouTube channels and they tell you that, then they believe that. But the world doesn't believe that. All right. Let's see. What song plays at the beginning of Smaulgld? Shark Air asks. That is Mark Battaglia. He's a Smaulgld subscriber. He's made that custom for the Smaulgld channel. He actually has a couple of others I used to play on the Smaulgld channel. I'll bring those back soon. Let's see. How has this guy never heard the term hard money? Yeah, I never heard of it. Never heard of it. Never heard of it. Never heard of gold, silver. Don't know anything about it. All right. So true, Lewis. You used to be able to kill a journalist, chop up his body, but today people make a big deal out of it. I don't know what that means. Steve Hall, people that doubt precious metals simply don't understand or are impatient. No. No. Maybe people who doubt precious metals have viewed how the world has changed entirely its perspective on precious metals. How the world has grown up on fiat currencies. How the world has been taught in schools about economics. They've learned Keynesian economics. They've learned credit. All of these, gold and silver being money is not a natural law. It is a function of human beings, human action, go to Mises, making a determination naturally that they viewed them as valuable, they viewed them as a means of exchange, and they started to use them as money, hard assets, if you will. The world doesn't do that anymore. Whether it's natural or unnatural, they've gone in a different direction. The idea that gold is money or silver is money, period, is an anachronism. It used to be. It had very good reasons to be that. The world has moved on from it. You can keep saying horses are transportation, period. They were transportation for 5,000 years. Therefore, they will always be transportation. People who don't understand that horses are transportation, they don't understand horses. No. I can know all about horses and know that they're used primarily today to run around in circles and have people bet on them. That doesn't mean I don't understand horses. Horses are real animals, period. Yeah, of course they are. It's like that scene in Pulp Fiction. Let's see. There's a suitcase full of gold. Most people in the audience think, how can I turn this into US dollars? That is true. The problem that happens when people learn about gold and silver for the first time, they think they're learning something that no one else knows. They get all this knowledge. They go and tell everybody. And then they think they're in the know. And everybody else who doesn't know what they know about gold and silver is either stupid, ignorant, or whatever. And it's possible that they are stupid or ignorant. But if you live in a world of stupid and ignorant people and they make the rules, doesn't matter what you think. Doesn't matter how much knowledge you have. All right, Shark Air is going to play Hold Your Head Up the next few minutes. Argent. Yeah, you got to play the long version too. Steve Hall, but it's not suppressed today. Of course it's suppressed today. All markets are suppressed. The fact that you know gold and silver are suppressed, they're the only markets that they don't admit are suppressed. They're clearly suppressed. Up over 300% in the last 20 years. Why? Most assets are up a lot over the last 20 years. I mean, that doesn't prove anything. Netflix is up even more than that. That's ridiculous. Tesla's up more than that. Things go up. Gold is valuable. Gold is desired. That is, I'm not denying that. That doesn't mean it's money. That doesn't mean it's a hard asset. Doesn't mean anything. Just means it's up. People wanted it. As I mentioned, it's good for... First of all, did you know that the primary use for gold, demand for gold, is jewelry? It's not money. It's not even gold reserves. It's not central banks. It's jewelry. By far the most. For silver, it's industrial. Then for jewelry, and then there's stackers that buy the rest of it. So there's not a great monetary demand or investment demand for silver, and there is some for gold, but the biggest gold demand is in jewelry. Now, jewelry is considered valuable, gold jewelry. That's why Indians buy it. When Indians buy gold, they're not buying gold eagles and bars. They're buying jewelry, bangles and necklaces. Same with Chinese. They buy trinkets, they buy statues. She's Not There. Yes, that's a very good song by the Zombies. Yes, 99% of silver coins disappeared from circulation quickly in 1965. That is exactly right. And that's, what's his name's law, where good money drives out bad money. No, bad money drives out good money. Lyndon Johnson, I don't know if you heard, Steve, I did a podcast on this. When they introduced the new coins in 1965 that no longer had silver in them, and that was part and parcel of a deal that the Democrats, Kennedy and Johnson, had made to demonetize silver, which meant they were going to get rid of the silver certificate. That's what Kennedy wanted to get rid of, and not back the certificates anymore with silver, and only use their silver for coins. And then Johnson had the idea, look, silver's too valuable as an industrial metal. We can't even use it in coins. We'll just make these copper nickel coins and just tell everybody that's a dime, a quarter, and a $half. No one's gonna know the difference. And when he launched that in May of 2065, they were still making silver coins dated 1964, because what they wanted to do, and they used 565 million ounces of silver in 1964 and 1965 to make 1964 dated coins. They wanted to flood the market with them so no one would hoard them. But people, they clearly were worth more than the copper clad coins. People did hoard them, but Johnson warned in his press conference that they had 3 billion ounces of silver, and if they had to, they would flood the market to drive the price of the silver down so that no one would make any money off of hoarding coins. Now, no one really did make any money off of hoarding the silver coins until the 70s, when the prices still were starting to move higher. But if you hoarded a silver coin in 1965, it wasn't like if you took a silver coin a $0.50 out of circulation that you can then go somewhere and sell it for like 80 cents. That wasn't happening. That didn't happen until the 70s when you had inflation and Johnson was no longer around, and people were pulling the silver coins out of circulation. Yeah, I don't know, Pablo Pina. Everyone tells me about the debt clock. The debt clock doesn't control anything. It's just something that somebody keeps track of and somehow has a price of silver on there. Okay. Why did gold pump over 300 if it's not hard money? I'm not even going to answer that. That's not even logic. Why did gold go up over 300% if it's not hard money? Why did Netflix go up 1,200% if it's not hard money? Do you realize that's an illogical question? If it's different this time, what a crock. What's different this time? What is different this time? Things, see, that's also a cliche. Things are different. Things are different. People do live in different ways over time. There's certain natural... See, people are assuming that gold and silver... Everyone's going to return to gold and silver. Not necessarily. Look at when Mark Dice tries to hand out gold or silver on the corner, and no one wants it. So if there was a financial crisis, why would anybody want to return to gold and silver? Well, the people would demand it. Who? Who would demand it? In 2008, we had a financial crisis. Who demanded gold and silver? Nobody. Because if they demanded it, they might have gotten it, but they didn't. You have to go outside of, you have to look at the society in which you live today. It has, if you are under 60, you have no connection whatsoever with gold or silver in any monetary sense, or even that it's valuable at all. You might have some for gold because you might have gotten an engagement ring or a necklace and you know that it's expensive. But it is different. Gold and silver in 1971, when the United States, when Nixon went on TV and took the United States off the gold standard and told foreign central banks you can't get gold. Well, in 1972 and 1973, European central banks were still hoping and praying that they can come back to some type of gold standard. There's not one central bank right now that's thinking that. And but what about China? They're buying gold hand over fist. China's issuing credit at the fastest rate of any country on earth. I think they've issued 75% of the global credit since 2008, and they're continuing to do it. They don't want a gold standard. No one wants a gold standard. It is different this time. You will have... what's not different is... and actually, this is different too. It used to be that markets would get to a certain point, they'd get overpriced, they get overvalued, and they crash. Well, today... You never had this before. A company like Tesla wouldn't even be in the market. It hasn't made any money. Never has made any money. That's totally different. The fact that it even is listed as a public company and is worth $30 billion is 100% different. You would never get a company 30 years ago in a stock market that made no money whatsoever and would have a 30, 50, $60 billion market cap. Things are different. That is 100% change. Now, that means maybe what's not different is that the market is different. That means that that's not really a market. Who in their right mind, if you're thinking normally, would ever give companies, we covered this last night, companies that make no profit, any market cap, any market cap? Why? Why would you, if you had $60 billion, would you buy Tesla? This isn't investment advice. I have to always... caveat that. When a company has a PE ratio, that means that it makes a certain amount of earnings, and if the PE ratio is 10, that means in 10 years, you would get your money back if you took out the profits. If a company has no PE, technically, it's not worth anything other than its breakup value for assets. Well, if it's an online company with a website, and it's already monetizing its traffic, and it doesn't make any money, and it loses 30, 50, $80 million a year, but somehow manages to have a market cap of $8 billion, how? Like, what is the rationale for the valuation for a company that I just described to have a market cap of $8 billion? It's It's totally different because they've created markets in which central banks print money and buy these shares. Wall Street and Silicon Valley sell them to institutional investors, and for whatever reason, they buy them. Why? Because they go up. They don't go up because they make profits. They go up because they go up, or the chart says they go up. So things are different. I'm not saying it's right. I don't agree with it. But everybody who's been saying gold and silver set to skyrocket, everyone's going to return to gold, they're wrong. It hasn't happened. The world doesn't think that way. Yep, commodity, people speculated on that. All right. If gold had no monetary status, then I didn't say it didn't have any monetary status. I said silver had no monetary status. Pay attention. Central banks do hold gold as a monetary asset. I must have said that 5 times or 10 times tonight, and I repeat it all the time when I report on central bank gold holdings. However, central banks in general, other than Russia, Kazakhstan, are not adding to their gold positions. Even Russia's gold hoard, 2,000 tons, which I report on all the time, and it gets published in Zero Hedge half the times I report on it monthly. Their gold hoard, 2,000 tons of gold, 5th largest central bank hoard in the world. It's only worth $75 billion. Gold is not that big of a deal in the monetary system. All the talk about repatriation of gold, they're not adding gold, they're repatriating gold. Again, the only countries adding gold to their reserves, central banks, not countries, are the countries that actually have gold mining production at home. Kazakhstan, Russia, up until last year, Turkey. China imports gold, India imports gold, but not the central bank. It goes to organizations, it goes to individuals, it goes to temples, it goes to sovereign wealth funds. But you can add as many exclamation points as you want and ask the rhetorical question, which isn't a rhetorical question because it's a statement of fact. If gold had no monetary status, then central banks would not hold it as a monetary asset. That's not true. Gold has a monetary status, and central banks hold it as a monetary asset. I've said that. You've said it. So now at least we're on the same page. And Steve Hall says, correct. Dr. Modesto, a journalist. The Saudis just killed a journalist in Turkey and chopped up his body. Yes, but what were we talking about that had anything to do with that? Okay, the jewelry that Indian buys is monetary in nature. That is correct, and I mentioned that as well. I said that they don't buy bullion bars, they buy jewelry, but they view it as valuable, and they put it in their dowry. See, when people take when I speak factually about gold and silver, that somehow I'm against them. I'm not against them. I'm against these pumper stories that somehow think that the facts that they know means that gold and silver should be worth more than they are just because they can state facts. I know these facts as well. Yes, they're buying bullion they can wear. I know that. The cycles of history will show your argument to be entirely false soon. Why? What cycles of history? Isn't it possible that horses are gold? Or that gold are horses? What I mean is that there comes a point where gold was desired as and also used as money because it was the best thing out there. I would say today that central banks and even people who buy gold online and silver online prefer to transact with credit cards, debit cards, cryptocurrencies, fiat currencies, digital currencies. They don't prefer to transact in gold and silver. So that cycle of history is gone. It used to be that if you wanted to buy something, you needed to have cash. And the best kind of cash was gold and silver. And then they made it easy with paper. Yes, that's a debasement. But once you start believing dogmatically, like it's been gold for 5,000 years and they will always return to gold, maybe not. There's no rule that gold has to be used in a monetary system. There's no rule that silver has to be used in a monetary system. Silver and gold have proven for the time period that we've been discussing to be the superior money. Better than seashells, better than beaver pelts, Why? You go through the characteristics of what makes good money, and gold and silver fit the bill. You know, copper is good for money. It's just that it's a little too cheap. But cycles of, there's no such thing as cycles of history, because at some point cycles get broken, and I believe they've already been broken. We haven't had gold really as a major part of the monetary system, and silver definitely not, for 50, 60 years. That's probably the longest period of time in the last 5,000 years where people did not treat gold and silver as monetary assets. It's never different this time. Arrogance tricks some people into believing. No. I don't think it's arrogance. I think it's examining where the world has come from and where the world is heading. It's arrogant to think that just because something happened in the past that it must happen in the future and that you can bank on it. Gresham's law, good money dries up bad. Yes, that's correct. And that is what happened. All right. Not to be confused with Jevons, Occam, Razor, Hobson's choice. Right. Bitcoin, not hard money. Agreed. See, Bitcoin is, when they try to say it's digital gold, that's complete nonsense. How's it digital gold? There is no Bitcoin. It only exists on the blockchain. It only exists and works if people have devices and you have electricity and you have miners. That's not gold. That's some digital abstraction that works within a system. But here's the interesting thing about Bitcoin. When I first saw Bitcoin and I saw this whole setup, and I said, okay, well, that's nice. That's like making a maze and then running around it, and say when you come out of it, you get a token. But there's no benefit to you running around in a maze. I just didn't understand why anyone would bother with Bitcoin. They said, "Oh, because the Bitcoin is valuable." I said, well, why is it valuable? What's it good for? Why would anybody want a string of code? I still don't get it, but I understand it. Gold and silver, you say, well, why would I want it? Well, it's obvious. You have it in your hand, you look at it, and you say, well, isn't that nice looking? And then you find out that you can do stuff with it, and that people will actually want it, and you can give it to them, or you can make it into a ring, or you can stick it into a solar panel, or you can do whatever you want, you know, whatever industrial use it might have. Makes sense why you'd want to have gold or silver. And gold and silver just are. They are. There's nothing you have to do to own them. You don't have to go online. You don't have to go collect it. You don't have to remember a password. You have it, and that's it, period. So I understand that's what makes gold and silver hard money. But to say Bitcoin is digital gold or Litecoin is digital silver, it doesn't make such a sense to me. But the difference is, the reason they have value is not because you can do anything with them the way you can do with gold and silver. Is you can transfer them, and somebody actually thinks they're worth $6,200. That's quite a trick. That is a huge trick. Steve, this is classic disinformation. So he's or a shill. When you don't buy into all the nonsense you hear on the gold and silver pumper channels, it's disinformation or shilling. No, what I try to do, Steve, is I try to figure out why these guys have been wrong for the last 10 years, and not just repeat the same crap that they say over and over again, and then say anyone who disagrees is a shill or a disinformation agent. Okay, but the point about Bitcoin or Litecoin is, or any of these things, and this is why it is different. People actually believe that they're worth that much money. And you say, well, they're not. Well, okay, but you can transfer them. If you don't think Bitcoin is worth anything and you happen to have one, send it to me. I can immediately turn that into $6,000 worth of goods and services, or I could buy 3 ounces of gold with it. So they actually are worth something. And what it comes down to, it doesn't matter what you think, what you know, what history says, what I say. It's what's happening that matters. I don't think Bitcoin and Litecoin are worth anything, because what are you going to do with it? But then I realize, no, send it to me. I can spend it. You actually can use it. It actually has fiat value, whereas the silver you have has very little value. Buying whiskey bottles and silver rounds. Well, that's a good idea. See, whiskey is very useful. But for some people, whiskey has negative value because they don't believe in it. They think that it's the devil's liquid. It's harmful to your health. But There are some people that'll pay not just, you know, $10, $15 for a bottle of whiskey. They'll pay thousands of dollars for some ancient aged whiskey or something. Everything has value. When people insist that only gold and silver have value, you're living in your own bubble. I don't disagree. I like gold and silver. I'm just saying that the world doesn't think that way. The world used to think that way. Everything was gold standard, silver standard. It's not that way anymore. What's better, silver coins or silver rounds? Well, that's a good question. Now, silver coins are sovereign minted. So you have the advantage of it's recognized, it's less likely to be counterfeited. They also have higher premiums. The worst premium is the U.S. Silver Eagle, which has a $2 premium per coin, no matter what the price per ounce is, that they charge to the authorized purchaser. So if the price is $10 an ounce, and they're charging $2 premium, you're paying 20% premium. At that point, silver rounds are probably a better bet because you don't make the premium back when you sell generally, because the dealers don't give you the full premium back. Now, if the price is $50 an ounce, gold rounds or I mean silver rounds or silver coins, I'd rather have the coin because the coin is very recognizable, easy to trade. They're not going to have to assay it. They're not going to want to melt it. But I think when the price is lower, silver rounds are the better buy. Roger Henley, wow, lots of red pill truthers around today who know better than everyone else because they listen to SGT. Okay, now I'm embarrassed for this guy. No, you should be embarrassed for yourself because I don't know you, and I'd like to get to know and discuss things with you, but you're coming at me with everything you've heard or read from a one-sided silver pumper perspective. I know there's probably not one fact you can tell me about gold or silver that I don't already know. Those facts in and of themselves are not res ipsa loquitur, meaning the things don't speak for themselves. Or maybe they do speak for themselves, but they don't speak for themselves, and then the way people extrapolate that therefore... Look, now he's asking a question. Why do central banks store gold in their, THERE, vaults? I've already told you why. They consider gold a monetary asset. You're not even understanding what I'm trying to even get across here. I'm not against gold and silver. You're taking everything I'm saying as being against gold and silver, just because I don't believe in the pumper belief in gold and silver. China is a monoculture. They can endure the next phase. America, no way. That's another thing gold and silver pumpers talk about. Somehow China, with its totalitarian, communist, top-down, Ponzi scheme economy, is somehow better than the United States because they buy gold and they are smart. And these people have never been to China. They have no idea what they're talking about. They're just cheering on China because they think end of dollar hegemony, dollar collapse, dollar has so much debt. China has more debt, has more bad debt than any nation on earth. All right. If anyone's swayed by this guy, I feel truly bad for them in their offspring. Steve, you want to keep coming back? I'd love to have... If you follow this channel every night, you might feel different. If not, there's plenty of other pumper channels you can go to. You can get a steady diet of gold and silver set to skyrocket. Gold is money. Silver is money. Silver collapse. Gold-silver ratio to go to 16:1. It's unsustainable. Gold back yuan. Game changer. Buy silver now. JP Morgan has 800 million ounces of silver. They're going to let it ride. Okay. Explain Bitcoin. Nah, not tonight. But White Space Marines, I will another time. Central banks like Canada has zero. Yeah, Canada has... Check this out. Canada sold all of its gold, has no gold, and has one of the few sovereign AAA ratings. I think only like Norway or Sweden has a AAA rating. Russia, 18% of their overall reserves, 2,000 tons of gold, and the ruble is a toilet paper currency. Turkey, toilet paper currency, and it has gold. The world doesn't value gold. They don't want the ruble. They don't want the Turkish lira. Whoa, but the dollar is toilet paper. Yeah, but the dollar is the most desired currency on earth. Should it be? Probably. Should gold be? Much more so. But of the fiat currencies, clearly the dollar is the most valued. And you say, well, they have so much debt, it's unsustainable. They all have so much debt. They all have even more debt than the United States. Euro has more debt than the U.S. They just issued their QE is like $5 trillion now. The U.S. stopped theirs at 4 and is winding down its balance sheet. China has more debt than anyone else on the planet. This whole system is fiat-based, is Ponzi scheme credit-driven. I understand all that, but that's the world in which we live. Now, I do say that hard assets like gold and silver are a great hedge against this ridiculous fiat credit-based financial system. Totally agree with that. But when people try to act like China's got it going on, no, they don't. They got like a debt to GDP ratio like 300%. They're way over their heads. They're the worst offender in the fiat Ponzi. In fact, the Chinese invented paper money. All right, Canada is not a real. Well, what do you mean? Canada is not a real country. Terrence and Philip come from Canada. I am patient. Only fools follow logical trends. Okay, Steve, I agree with you. You were listening, I hope. I just said that this whole fiat Ponzi scheme, credit-based, I don't like it. It is illogical. Creating money out of thin air, I get all that. But that's the world in which you live in. And it doesn't mean, A, that it's not going to go on for a lot longer, and B, that when it ends, somehow it ends with a return to gold and silver. You don't know that. Cycles of history. What about biggest wealth transfer to happen this decade? Yeah, you bought silver for $40 an ounce earlier in the decade, and it's now at 14. Where did the transfer go to? Exeter's Pyramid. Watch a little too much Bullet and Shield on that one. Silver is real money. Where'd you get that in from? All right. Let's see. Cycles of history. Yes, cycles of history. All right. Copper is money. Yeah, copper is money. Actually, copper currently is money. Copper is in your nickels. Copper is in your quarters. 75% of your nickel is copper. The other 25% is nickel. All right. Cliff High Web Bot. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Digital markets on a computer screen or manipulates is Lord Humongous. That is correct. That is 100% correct. I don't trust any market data, nor do I. In a liquidity crisis, people will flee to the most safest, most liquid real asset market, that's gold. That's true. That's what you're seeing now. You're not seeing it in the biggest way, but you're definitely seeing it. But here's an interesting thing. I don't even know how to call you Bab. Is when people are buying gold today, the price of gold rising is not because people are buying physical gold. It's because some bunch of traders are trading paper contracts on the COMEX, or they're going online and they're buying GLD. Now, you may think that's stupid. You may think that doesn't make any sense. To me, it doesn't make any sense. I'll tell you why. If you want gold, and the reason you want gold is for some type of safety and having a hard asset, why would you buy a contract? Well, they'll deliver it to you. Well, they might not. And if the market's closed, you're certainly not going to get delivery. And by the way, the ETFs, they have no practicable, even the Sprott one, it's not really practicable to get delivery of your gold. I think you have to wait 30 days, but at least there is a delivery option in the Sprott one. But the other ones, there's no delivery option. So people, they think, yeah, well, we're going through a rough time in the stock market, so let me buy some GLD, or let me go long some gold contracts. Because the gold sales at the U.S. Mint are going nowhere right now. I sold like 14,000 1-ounce coins this month. That's not people rushing into a real hard asset. Cliff High. Okay. Hi, stackers, says Max Strong. Digital gold sounds expensive. You can trade Bitcoin for gold. That is true. I do see what you wrote, Bab. That's pretty funny. Roger Henley. How is gold the most liquid asset? I challenge you to go somewhere and try to purchase anything with a gold coin. Good luck. Most coin shops will accept it, but not much else. Well, Greenspan did say that gold will always be the most desired asset. That anyone will take it. And that's even more than a dollar. I do agree with that. That not anyone, but if you're in a very high stakes transaction and you're dealing with people you have no idea who they are, and let's say it's a few $1,000s. I would not take a check from somebody that I did not know. I would not take a foreign currency from somebody I did not know. I would not take $100 bills from somebody I did not know. I would take a Smaulgld gold because I know it may not be the easiest transaction, but what Bav is saying is correct. That is the asset that universally people can say, I know I'm getting my value. You're not going to take Turkish lira. You're not going to take Russian rubles. You're not going to take Bitcoin. Why? Well, some people might take Bitcoin. The problem you have with Bitcoin, unless you can convert it into fiat of your choice right away, you're taking a big risk that the price is going to dump. Gold coin that you know is gold, I'm sorry, but the expression is good as gold. See, Steve Hall and I'm not against gold and silver. I'm against these pumper stories. If you stick with this channel long enough, I will give you a lot of information, more information than they give you. I go through more charts, more data than they go through. I just don't pump the hell out of them. These crypto dudes are, yeah, okay, gold is the most liquid hard asset. No, I agree. And then the next most is silver. But Roger Henley correctly points out Smaulgld mugs are the most liquid hard assets. In a collapse, you can at least use the mug, but the gold is just a plain paperweight that can't hold coffee or water. You can put Mountain House in a mug. You can't put Mountain House in gold or silver. Definitely Smaulgld mugs, that's the way to go. Gasoline you can put in a mug. The security of the network and limited supply, yes, John, that is what gives Bitcoin and Litecoin their value. But it doesn't give them value other than their use as money. However, as a form or a medium of exchange, Bitcoin and Litecoin are far superior to gold and silver. You may not want to be holding gold and silver, Bitcoin and Litecoin as a store of value. Now, some people say it is. I say it isn't because we've seen if you were holding Litecoin as a store of value 6 months ago, you lost half of it. If you were holding gold for the last 6 months, you haven't lost much at all. But the security, that is what gives, yes, what gives them value is it's not even that they're limited in supply, is that people actually believe they have value. And once they believe they have value, you can transfer that value in a secure method. And that's why Bitcoin and Litecoin have value. But to me, that doesn't make them digital gold or silver. That makes them fast payment, secure payment, desire to hold so that you can use them on a moment's notice. Private, you can hold them. The government can't just shut your account down like they can a bank account. Plenty of advantages to Bitcoin and Litecoin, but they're not gold and silver. All right. Bitcoin is the most liquid asset you can turn into cash in the seconds. Yes. The only issue with that is if you're at a place, you have to make sure that the other person has it, that you have your device, that they can send it to your device, and that you can turn it into cash. You have a payment processor that will turn it into fiat if that's what you indeed want. I like gold, silver, and crypto. Okay, me too, Coliseum. All is one. A lot of people are saying that. See, a lot of people that like gold and silver like cryptocurrencies. And some people now that like cryptos also like gold and silver. But there's some people who like gold and silver that are stuck in this silver is money, period. Gold is money, period. Gold has been money for 5,000 years, period. Only gold is money. Bitcoin is pretty good, but nowhere as deep as gold. That's true. I actually don't like Bitcoin and Litecoin, but I like them. I like them against my own analysis, but that's the point. I don't run how things work. And I think a lot of people who have opinions on gold and silver, they assume the rest of the world is out of step. I understand that I could be out of step. If Bitcoin and Litecoin are valuable for what I see they're valuable, and other people see they're more valuable than I do, and if more people see they're more valuable than I do, then they are more valuable than the value I ascribe to them, and therefore they are more valuable, so I have to accept that. Gold and silver are real money. Everything else is credit, but crypto is quick. That's right. Bitcoin is better. Gold, silver, ammo, firearms. So there you go. But then you need food too. John Moore, Bitcoin is better than gold because of the digital age in which we live. Clearly, and I made that point earlier, for transacting. Just as cars are better for transportation than horses. Doesn't matter that horses were transportation for 5,000 years. Cars are better for transportation. Bitcoin is better for transacting than gold. No two ways about that. Now, you can't make a necklace out of Bitcoin, so that doesn't mean that gold doesn't have any value. And gold still has transactional value, but it's not the same as Bitcoin. It just can't compete in that, but it can compete in other areas, and it blows Bitcoin away. You know, and that you can have a ring, you can have a necklace. You can't have that with Bitcoin. All right, let's see. I'm getting a little tired here. Let's see. If Canada has no gold, why is it one of the few countries that make PM mints? I don't know why that is. They do have a very nice mint. And John Moore, dollar is the strongest of the fiat currencies by far. That's true. All the people that like, also they trash the dollar as if the other fiat currencies are better. China to crush the dollar, end of dollar hegemony. No way, Jose. You can I can understand trashing fiat currencies in general, but to start with the dollar's the strongest fiat currency there is. Yes, those mints import a lot of the supplies from the Perth Mint in Australia. You know what happened, Lord Humongous, when, the U.S. Mint doesn't even make its own planchets to make the Silver Eagles, and I think the Canadian Mint has problems too. When they ran out of planchets from their private suppliers, like the Sunshine Minting Company in 2015, the Australian Mint decided they were going to make the new Australian kangaroo silver bullion coin because they didn't have a shortage. They had planchets ready to go, and they minted up 3.5 million of them. Canada has a lot of gold mines. It can nationalize them in a crisis. That is correct. And Australia has the second largest, think of this, Australia has the second largest gold mining production, but the Central Bank of Australia has hardly any gold. They export it to China. Lord Humongous, your Eagles are most likely Aussie silver. Well, they have their own silver too. The United States has 30 million in silver in silver production each year. Oh, we're getting a little long in the tooth here. Could a decentralized cryptocurrency replace the dollar? Well, it could voluntarily, but you remember the dollar, they used to have what used to be legal tender in the US up until like 1840, 1850 was the pieces of 8. Why? Because it was a standard weight of silver and they allowed the use of that. But I don't think it would replace... Oh, you mean replace the dollar as a global currency? Well, it could. In fact, and so could gold. But countries like Iran that are effectively shut out of the SWIFT system, they got to transact somehow. So something other than the dollar. And probably better for it to be not attached to a nation. So let's say Iran says, okay, well, screw the dollar. We're going to use Australian dollars. Or we're going to use euros. Well, they'll get kicked out of the U.S. will put pressure on those those countries so that they couldn't use those currencies. So then what would they use? They'd have to use a third party, decentralized. They could use Bitcoin. They can use gold. Dr. Modesto, Canada's the most vicious, greedy gold mining companies on the planet. They also had a lot of those gold mining stocks. The Toronto or Vancouver Stock Exchange. Always be money stacking. I don't know why gold is so popular. Charles Powers, in the Bible says the last days that people will be throwing their gold and silver out in the street as soon as possible, the invention of Bitcoin. All right, that's possible. I pumped the pumpers. A gold coin is valuable as long as it's not tongues and round plated with gold, says Roger. Correct. Bab, okay, I get it, Snowy. Just annoyed with the constant pumpers that lie about the COT reports and all that. Yes, if you look, I don't like this JP Morgan story. There's no legs to it whatsoever. The COT never happened before. Go back and look at my my earlier videos on that. I actually did also an interview with silver doctors on this. That's just the natural ebb and flow of people going long and short. Doesn't mean anything. Chinese coin, why? Treat crypto, get rid of it. Okay, now Charles, looks to me like Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are the mark of the beast. Now, if you go through your mark of the beast, cryptocurrencies are late on the scene in the whole digital scene. First of all, before they even arrived, the world was already headed towards a digital or cashless society. I think there's $1 trillion worth of US dollars in the world. And there's like, I don't know, 40 or 50 trillion dollars worth of deposits. So there's not even enough cash to back the deposits. All the deposits you have in a bank are digital. And 2/3 of that cash is overseas. So I don't blame Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, or I don't ascribe to them as the introduction of the mark of the beast. That already exists. All Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are privately issued digital currencies to compete with an already digital society. So I don't like to ascribe the mark of the beast to cryptocurrencies. I don't have a problem ascribing it to the digitization of the dollar, of the euro, all the other currencies, but I don't blame it on cryptocurrency because they were already, the world was already headed towards a trackable, cashless digital society. And if someone gave you Bitcoin, would you cash it in right away or hold it? Depends on how much Bitcoin it was. Steve Hall. He's really beating his dead horse analogy. That's pretty clever. With the horse, right? Charles, so be forced to take the Bitcoin and for it in your hand and forced to take... No, but Charles, take Bitcoin out of the equation. You can just as easily say that if they want to institute, like in China, they want to institute digital yuan, which, it's the same thing. It's not Bitcoin. I don't think Bitcoin is the introduction of this concept. All right. Oh, we still got comments here. I might have to cut it off here. I don't want to miss anyone's comments. I really do appreciate even the negative ones. They're good because they start the discussion and nothing personal. These are just screen names. We all know fiat's become trash historically, but it's different this time. Well, here's what is different this time, Steve. Whenever a fiat currency has failed in the past, there's always been another currency that wasn't fiat, that was backed. So, for example, let's say in the 30s or the 20s, Argentina collapses. Well, you just go to another country that has the gold standard, that has its gold accounts in order, and you have that currency. For the first time in history, we have a pure fiat currency system. That is different. And you may say, it's never different. That's so never different. No, it is different. We've never had a pure fiat currency system. There's nowhere to run to. If your currency collapses, you can only go to gold, maybe silver, Bitcoin, like whatever it is. Most likely what people do is they go to the dollar. But this is the first time in history where all the currencies are fiat. And that means that all the currencies and all the central banks have a vested interest in allowing and actually counting as assets each other's debt. It's almost like a mutually assured destruction. No one wants to break out of it. China can't break out of it. They owe so much money. They run their economy on debt. So they all agree with each other that debt is good and that debt is an asset. Now, eventually, eventually everything ends. You might be dead before this happens. But eventually, debt, you're right. It's not different. It has to get paid, or eventually it will collapse, or it won't produce the desired effect. You reach a Minsky moment, whatever it is. But none of this is assured of what's going to happen. All right, let's see. He did say there is no rule that a monetary system has to be based on gold. What about the United States Constitution? Isn't that a rule, maybe a law? Jet hack, don't ask me about the Constitution because I don't think you understand what's in the Constitution. Constitution does not say that a monetary system has to be based on gold or silver. I'm going to read you the Constitution, and maybe without me explaining it, you can tell me what it says. Constitution does not say that the monetary system has to be based on gold and silver. In fact, it doesn't say anything about have to anything. What it says is it's a prohibition on the states And it says, Article 1, Section 10, that no state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in the payments of debt. Does not say that gold, does not mandate gold and silver to be used as anything. It just says that if there's an issue, a state can't make up any money it wishes. The federal Constitution says that no state can make up money unless it's gold or silver. It does not mandate a rule that the monetary system has to be gold and silver. In fact, if you know your history, if you go back to the history of the foundation of the country, they issued continentals, paper dollars. Had nothing to do with gold and silver. Unless they say not worth a continental. There was no gold necessarily or silver in the any of the time periods. It wasn't mandated. They chose gold and silver for the coinage. It was not mandated, and there was no international agreement that the monetary system had to be based on gold or silver. If you know anything about the Bretton Woods agreements in 1944 and the negotiations, it was possible that gold wasn't going to be a part of that system. They were trying to come up with other ways not to have gold and even not to have the dollar, but they picked the dollar backed by gold. Well, when Nixon just ripped up the Bretton Woods agreements in 1971, essentially gold is not mandated at all, other than you have to pay a little gold into the IMF to join, and that's about it. So, what about the Constitution? Isn't that a rule, like maybe a law? Yes, the Constitution is like a rule, and like maybe a law. But it is a negative prohibition against states issuing anything but gold or silver. Jets hack. Bleach hurts. Why did you ignore my silver question? I'm sorry, stacking assets. Let me go back and find it. I did not ignore anything on purpose. I still don't. Can you rewrite it again when I get to it? I don't see it. I don't see your silver question. All right. I'm sorry. I got so many questions tonight. I might not be able to get through them here. Okay. Joe, I came here 40 minutes late, listened at 2 times speed, and just caught up to live. Well, that's quite the dedication, Joe. Thanks for joining. I think we're almost done. Stacking asset. What are you talking about? Drink copper soon. Oh my God, you're dumb. I have precious metals. I'm back. You dodged the point. If I have precious metals, default says I am backed personally. You dodged the point. What point? Yes. I'm not denying that if you have assets that you're backed by those assets. Okay. I didn't dodge any point. You didn't write a sentence before. All right. Here's I can fit that in there. All right. I'm going to have to end here. I didn't count on an hour and a half, but thank you very much for joining me tonight. And please join me every night around 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. Thanks for all the new listeners and all the comments tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow night.